I bought an old map at a flea market, and it showed a place that doesn't exist on Google Maps. I wasn't looking for anything special that day. Just needed to get out of the apartment. You ever get that itch, for walls closing in, stale air, nothing on TV that doesn't piss you off? So I drove to this flea market about an hour outside of town. It's one of those permanent setups, all rusted sheet metal stalls and sun-faded tarps, the kind where half the vendors sell old tools and the other half pretend their junk is antique. It was late August. Heat stuck to your skin like wet paper. I wandered for maybe 45 minutes, flipping through crates of vinyl, boxes of rusted wrenches, a stack of old license plates. I was about ready to call it a day when I saw a small, cardboard shoebox under a table with a handwritten sign, maps, $1 each. Most were road atlases from the 70s, park pamphlets, and gas station fold-outs. But tucked near the bottom was this one, thicker paper, almost parchment. Faded blue ink. No title or date, just a hand-drawn grid and a series of lines crisscrossing like veins. One spot was circled in red. Not labeled, just a circle, about the size of a dime. Something about it caught me. The roads on the map didn't match any I knew, and I know this state pretty damn well. I traced a line from my town, and sure enough, the main highway was there. But past a certain point, it split off into a road that doesn't exist anymore. Not on Google Maps. Not on any modern GPS. I bought the map. Guy behind the table barely looked up. Just said, "Careful with that one." Didn't think much of it at the time. But that night, I couldn't stop looking at it. It was hand-drawn, yeah, but the detail was obsessive. Little marks showing trees, water towers, a gas station symbol I hadn't seen since I was a kid. There were smudges, like someone had folded and unfolded it 100 times. And that red circle? Dead center of this blank-looking area. No label. Just a dot. I ran a Google search on the road names, some of them turned up in old historical mentions, decommissioned highways, farming routes shut down in the 80s. But this place? Nothing. It didn't exist anymore. Or maybe it never did. No satellite images, no city records, no online chatter. Just that map. Now, I'm not some conspiracy guy. I don't wear tinfoil or live in a bunker. I'm a warehouse supervisor, 35 years old, normal paycheck, normal life. But something about that map scratched at me. The next Saturday, I packed a small cooler, filled up the tank, and drove out. I figured, what's the worst that could happen? I'd waste a tank of gas and a day off. God knows I've done worse with my time. The first part of the route was easy. Just regular country roads, gas stations with one working pump, diners with faded open signs and "Help Wanted" scribbled in grease pencil on the windows. I followed the directions exactly as the map showed. When my GPS tried to reroute me, I shut it off. Eventually, the pavement gave way to gravel. Then dirt. The road narrowed. Branches scratched the side of the truck. It didn't feel dangerous, not yet. Just forgotten. But after about 20 more minutes, I passed a sign. Rusted. Half buried in weeds. It used to say, "Welcome to," the name was unreadable. Shot through with buckshot. The post leaned like a drunk. That's when the air changed. You ever step into a place and feel like you're being watched? Not paranoid, just that subtle, animal sense. Like you're intruding on something. That's how it felt. Fields stretched out on both sides of me, dry, overgrown, the kind that used to be corn or soybeans 50 years ago. A few barns sagged in the distance, paint stripped to bare wood, roofs caved in. I passed a house where the front door was wide open and swinging in the breeze. No car in the drive. No mailbox. Just stillness. There were no signs of modern life. No power lines. No tire tracks. No trash cans. Just silence. I pulled over near what looked like a church. Small, white, wooden cross barely hanging on. The sign out front was empty, the letters long gone. Windows were boarded, but someone had pried one loose. I thought about looking inside, but something stopped me. Instead, I sat on the hood of the truck, drinking warm Gatorade, staring at the map. The red circle was about a mile up the road. Near a small bend, where a creek once crossed. I felt it in my gut, I wasn't supposed to be here. But I'd come this far. I folded the map, stuck it in my pocket, and kept driving. The road turned rougher past the old church. More potholes than dirt, the kind that rattled your teeth and made every bolt in the truck complain. I kept going. Slow. Windows down. No radio. Just the creak of branches brushing the sides and the low hum of tires grinding through gravel. I passed a rusted-out mailbox half swallowed by weeds. No name. Just a number, 1914. Something about it stuck in my mind, like I'd seen that number before. Maybe not in real life, maybe in a photo, or a story. I didn't know yet. Another half-mile and the road narrowed again, just 2 tire tracks, like no one had driven through in years. Trees leaned in from both sides, turning the sunlight into strips across my windshield. It wasn't pitch black, not yet, but it felt like the kind of road where you turn your headlights on just to make sure you still exist. And then, just like the map promised, I came to the bend. There was no bridge, not anymore. Just a dip in the land where a creek used to run. Dry now, just stones and brittle grass. I parked the truck and got out. The air smelled old. Like mildew and dust and something I couldn't place, something that didn't belong. I took the map out of my pocket. I was standing right on the red circle. It didn't look like anything. Just empty land. Then I turned around. And saw the house. It was set back from the road. Half hidden by trees. A small, single-story farmhouse. Front porch leaning, windows clouded over with age. The paint had peeled off so completely it looked gray, like it was made of driftwood. But it wasn't the decay that got me. It was the familiarity. I'd seen this house before. Not in person, in an old photo. A black and white Polaroid stuck in the back of a photo album my aunt gave me after my mother died. I remembered it because there was no writing on it, no people in the shot. Just a house, framed dead center, like someone had wanted to remember the building, not the people inside it. I still had that album. Tucked away in a box in the closet. Now I was staring at that same house. Real and silent and rotting in front of me. I walked toward it. The porch groaned under my boots. Not just the soft give of old wood, it groaned like it recognized me. I pushed the door. It didn't even creak, just opened like it had been waiting. Inside, the air was thick. Dust floated like smoke in the sunlight through the broken window. The furniture was still there, an old couch with stuffing leaking out, a broken rocking chair, a table with one leg propped up by bricks. Nothing had been touched in decades. And yet, there was a photo on the wall. Framed. Hung straight. Not dusty like the rest of the house. I walked over, heart thumping hard in my chest. It was a family photo. Faded color. A man, a woman, 2 boys. The older boy looked about 6 or 7. The younger one, maybe 3. I stared at the older boy. And saw myself. Not exactly. But close. Too close. Same eyes. Same hair. Same lopsided grin I had in every school photo before I learned to fake a smile. I didn't recognize the man or the woman. But the boy, it was like looking at a version of myself that never grew up. I checked the back of the photo. Nothing written. I checked the other rooms. Dust and silence. A kitchen with rusted appliances. A bedroom with a rotted mattress. A bathroom with a broken mirror, and behind it, a cabinet with a single bottle of iodine, half full. But in the last room, what looked like a child's bedroom, I found something else. A box. Wooden. Heavy. Padlocked shut. I picked it up. It wasn't locked to anything, just sitting there on the floor like someone had put it down and forgot about it. The padlock looked old but intact. I was about to carry it back to the truck when I heard something. A cough. Outside. I froze. It was close, just beyond the porch. I waited, heart pounding, ears straining. Nothing. I set the box down and stepped back into the hallway, peeking through the broken slats in the front door. There was a man standing in the road. Facing the house. He wasn't moving. Just standing there, hands in his coat pockets. Middle-aged. Gray beard. Tan ball cap. From this distance, I couldn't make out his expression. But he was looking straight at me. I stepped out onto the porch. "Hey," I said. "You need something?" No answer. "Do you know what this place is?" Still nothing. Just that fixed stare. I took a step down off the porch. My boots crunched dry leaves. That sound was too loud in the quiet. "You know this house?" I asked again. That's when he spoke. Voice flat. Like he'd been rehearsing it. "You shouldn't be here." My mouth went dry. "Why?" He didn't answer. Just turned and walked back down the road, slow, steady, until the trees swallowed him whole. I didn't follow. I went back inside, grabbed the wooden box, and got the hell out. I didn't sleep that night. The box sat on my kitchen table like it was alive. I kept glancing at it, half expecting it to shift or make a sound. It didn't. Just sat there, locked tight, silent and heavy like a secret. I should have left it in the house. Should have walked away from all of it. But I didn't. Around 3 a.m., I gave in. Went to the garage, dug around in the toolbox, and found my old bolt cutters. The lock didn't put up much of a fight, just snapped with a clean pop. That sound echoed way too loud in the stillness of the house. I lifted the lid. Inside were papers. Dozens of them, folded and yellowed with time. Handwritten letters. Old newspaper clippings. A few black and white photographs. And at the bottom, a birth certificate. I pulled it out, hands shaking. Name, Aaron Michael Grady. Born, October 13, 1986. Mother, Elizabeth Jane Grady. Father, William Allen Grady. Place of birth, Rowan County, KY. My lungs locked up. That was my name. I don't mean it looked like my name, I mean it was my name. Full name, down to the middle. Same birth date, too. I double-checked the paper. It wasn't fake. It was real, old, official. Stamped. Notarized. Sealed. Only I wasn't born in Rowan County. I was born in Indianapolis, or at least that's what I'd always been told. My mom had passed when I was in college, and my dad, well, he'd never really been around to begin with. He bounced after I turned 5. Never heard from him again. I sat there in my kitchen, staring at a piece of paper that said my whole life was a lie. I dug deeper into the box. More photos, the same house I'd been to, but years earlier, in better shape. A woman in a flower print dress standing on the porch. A man in overalls waving at the camera. And that boy again, same grin, same hair, same face. Then I found the newspaper clipping. June 1991, local family dies in suspicious fire. A tragic house fire claimed the lives of Elizabeth and William Grady of rural Rowan County late Sunday night. The couple's young son, Aaron, is presumed dead, though no remains were found. The cause of the fire is under investigation. Arson is suspected. Presumed dead. No remains found. I stumbled back, the chair screeching against the floor. My palms were slick with sweat. They thought I died. Someone wanted them to think I died. I spent the rest of the night rereading everything, the letters, the news articles, the fragments of a life I didn't know I'd lived. Most of the letters were from Elizabeth, my mother. They weren't addressed to anyone. Just written. As if she needed to get the words out. Some were dated months before the fire. Most talked about fear. About men coming by at night and things we weren't supposed to know. She wrote about William digging into something he found near the old mill down the road. She didn't say what it was, only that it scared them both. And that ever since, they'd been getting watched. The last letter was dated 3 days before the fire. It ended with, "If anything happens to us, someone needs to know. They want to erase us. But Aaron deserves to live free. To forget this place. Maybe that's safer." That line sat with me. Aaron deserves to live free. To forget this place. But I didn't forget. I just never knew. So who the hell raised me? And why? I dug out the photo album my aunt gave me after Mom died. I hadn't touched it in years. Inside were the usual pictures, birthdays, school plays, vacations I only half remembered. But near the back, tucked behind the page, was a photo I'd never noticed before. It was the same house. Same porch. Only this time, there was a man standing in front of it. Wearing a tan ball cap. I froze. It was him. The man I saw on the road. Same gray beard. Same eyes. And in this photo, he wasn't just some stranger. He had his hand on my shoulder. I flipped it over. In faded blue ink, someone had written. Aaron and Uncle Dale, Summer '91. Dale. I searched through the letters again. Found one with that name. Elizabeth had written to him, a short letter, barely a paragraph, begging him to take Aaron if anything happens. She called him her brother. That was the last missing piece. Dale took me after the fire. Changed my records. Changed my name. Moved us to Indiana. Erased the past, or tried to. But the past doesn't stay buried forever. I didn't go to work that Monday. Didn't call in, either. Just sat at the kitchen table staring at that box and the photo of the man who raised me. Dale. Uncle Dale. My whole life I thought I was a regular kid with a broken family. Mom died when I was 20, some kind of aneurysm. We'd been close, but she never talked much about the past. Said her family was gone. Never gave names. Never gave reasons. Now I knew why. Because she wasn't my mother. Not really. She just played the part. She and Dale must have agreed to it. Maybe she couldn't have kids of her own. Maybe she owed him. Maybe she believed whatever reason he gave for taking me away and pretending nothing ever happened. But it did happen. And the pieces were starting to fall into place. I went back to the house that afternoon. Same road. Same turnoff. Same empty quiet. Only this time, I brought gloves, a crowbar, and a flashlight. If there was something buried out there, something my real father found near that mill, I was going to find it. The farmhouse looked the same, but different now. It wasn't just a relic. It was a crime scene. A place someone tried to erase. I parked around back, out of sight. Walked the perimeter. The porch still groaned like before, but now I knew who used to sit there. Knew where the boys' room had been. Knew where the fire had started, because I'd found the fire report in the bottom of the box. Kitchen. Accelerant. No sign of electrical failure. Someone had burned them alive. I stepped inside. Daylight filtered through the broken slats. Dust motes hung like smoke in the still air. I moved slow, careful not to breathe too deep. Every creak of the floorboard felt louder than it should have. I went back to the boys' room. The floorboards under the old rug had fresh scuff marks. Faint, but newer than the rest of the place. I knelt and pried them up with the crowbar. Third board popped loose, and beneath it, something metal. A tin box. No lock. Just rust and age. Inside were more photographs, not family ones this time, but landscapes. Places. Notes scribbled on the back in sharp, tight handwriting. One read, "Old mine entrance, sealed 1984. Another, "Cave system north of the mill, maps don't show it." Then there was a note, folded 4 times, water-stained but legible. "If you're reading this, and you made it back, then maybe they missed something. Maybe they didn't finish the job. It's all buried up there, what they built, what they dumped, what they did." I found one of the drums. Cracked open. The smell, I'll never forget it. Animals twisted up like tumors. And bones, too small to be livestock. They threatened me. Told me I saw nothing. But I took pictures. Kept them off-site. Just in case. If anything happens to us, follow the old trail behind the mill. 2 miles north. Look for the stone with the X. Dig there. God help us if it leaks. It was signed, William Grady. My father. I sat back on my heels, staring at the note. 2 miles north. A stone with an X. The mill wasn't on the map. But I remembered something from the old topo diagrams I'd found online while digging into Rowan County. An abandoned processing plant, shut down in '85 after a chemical incident. They blamed it on faulty containment protocols. No one was charged. No cleanup crews were ever sent. It was listed as non-recoverable industrial property. That's code for, don't ask. I knew where I was going next. But before I left, I checked the rest of the house one more time. That's when I heard it. A car engine. Tires on gravel. I ducked behind the curtain near the front window. It was a gray sedan. Late model. Parked on the road. 2 men stepped out. Suits. One tall, bald, wearing sunglasses even in the dim light. The other shorter, stocky, looked like he'd spent time behind a desk in a boxing ring. They didn't knock. They walked straight to the porch. I slipped out the back door, through the tree line, crouching low. My truck was hidden, but I couldn't make it without them seeing. The taller man stepped inside. The other stood watch on the porch, arms crossed. I didn't wait to find out who they were. I moved north. Through the trees. Following the dry creek bed on foot, using the sun as my compass. The mill was maybe 1.5 miles away. I heard the front door slam behind me, distant now. Followed by a voice. Low. Angry. Too late. He's already here. I followed the creek bed for nearly an hour, the trees closing in tighter the farther I went. No sounds but birds and my own breath. Every few minutes I stopped and listened, half expecting to hear footsteps behind me. But the woods were still. Like they were holding their breath. Eventually the ground leveled out, and the forest opened into a clearing. There it was. The mill. What was left of it, anyway? A concrete carcass slumped against the tree lean, windows broken, roof caved in. The chain-link fence that once kept people out was collapsed in places, rusted clean through in others. A faded metal sign still hung from one post, "Caution, hazardous materials." The corner flapped in the breeze like a warning that came too late. I climbed through a gap and stepped into the past. The air here was different. Heavy. Metallic. It smelled like old oil and rot and something chemical, sharp and dry, like a hospital that had burned down and never got cleaned up. Inside, the place was dead. Just rust and mold and silence. Most of the machines had been stripped for parts decades ago. But the bones were still there, conveyor belts, rusted drums, steel doors sealed with thick bolts. A few were painted yellow with the black trefoil of radiation warnings, now faded to ghost shapes. I didn't linger. Behind the mill was the trail my father wrote about. Narrow. Overgrown. It started at the base of a collapsed retaining wall and wound uphill through thick brush. 2 miles north. I started walking. About a mile in, the trees thinned, and the trail forked. One way dropped into a gully, the other climbed toward a ridge. I followed the higher path, checking every boulder, every outcrop, looking for the marker. Then I saw it. A flat stone, taller than me, leaning slightly. Weathered and pitted, but unmistakable, a large X carved into its face. Deep and deliberate. Not the work of nature. My hands were shaking when I started to dig. The ground fought me, roots, rocks, packed clay. But about 2 feet down, the dirt changed color. Darker. Oily. Then metal. I hit something solid. It was a drum. Like the ones you see on old cleanup sites, heavy, corroded, but intact. I cleared more dirt, revealing the faded letters stamped on the side. Property of Eridan Industrial, do not open. Eridan. I'd seen that name once before, on one of the papers in the box. A subcontractor, long defunct. Bought out in the late 80s by a defense company with no public records. I wiped the grime off the top. The lid had been welded shut, poorly. One edge had been pried open. Just a sliver. Barely enough to see inside. I didn't want to look. But I did. Inside were bones. Small. Twisted. Coated in something black and gelatinous. They weren't animal. There was a skull, maybe the size of a grapefruit. Human, but not. Elongated. Deformed. Like it had been cooked and collapsed in on itself. I saw ribs. Fingers. God help me, I saw teeth. And beside it, a Polaroid. It was stuck to the inner wall of the drum, smeared but visible. A man in a hazmat suit, holding a clipboard, standing beside what looked like a metal table. On it was something wrapped in plastic, the same shape as what was in the drum. You could see its outline. Bent limbs. A mouth frozen mid-scream. On the back of the photo was a date, April 16, 1984. And below that, test subject Ember 12, failure. Incomplete absorption. Begin containment. I dropped the photo. Backed away. I wanted to vomit. That's when I heard footsteps. Not animals. Boots. Multiple. Voices followed, low, urgent, moving fast. Not panicked. Professional. I scrambled back up the trail, staying low. The brush scratched my arms, dirt clung to my clothes, but I didn't stop. Couldn't. As I crested the ridge, I glanced back. 3 men in black gear stood around the open pit. One held up the Polaroid. Another talked into a radio. They didn't look surprised. They looked like they'd done this before. I kept moving. Circled wide around the mill. Picked up the creek bed again and ran till my lungs burned. When I got back to my truck, I didn't stop to think. Just threw it in gear and drove. Didn't care if they followed. Didn't care if they saw me. I just needed to get away. I drove until the sun went down and the gas light blinked on. Pulled off at a roadside motel. Sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes before I could make myself go inside. When I finally shut the door behind me, I looked at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. Same face. Same eyes. But I didn't recognize the man anymore. I called him the next morning. Didn't even think about it. Just sat on the edge of the motel bed, hands still dirty, and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number labeled Dale. It had been saved that way since high school. We didn't talk often, birthdays, the occasional check-in, but he always answered. This time, he didn't. Went to voicemail after 4 rings. I left a message. My voice didn't even sound like mine. Hey. It's me. I need to talk. Now. It's about back then. The house. The fire. All of it. I hung up. Didn't say more. He called back an hour later. No small talk. Just, where are you? Motel off Route 22, I said. You want the room number? No. I'll come to you. Wait outside. Click. 28 minutes later, he pulled up in a dusty blue pickup I'd never seen before. No plates on the front. Window tint too dark for the state. He didn't get out right away, just sat behind the wheel, hands tight on the steering wheel like he was deciding whether to hit the gas or come inside. Finally, he stepped out. Same ball cap. Same boots. Older than I remembered, grayer, thinner, but still solid. The kind of man who doesn't make excuses. Just lives with what he's done. We sat on the motel chairs out front, side by side, like 2 guys waiting for their smokes to burn out. You went back, he said, not looking at me. Yeah. You find the house? Yeah. Pause. You open the box. I nodded. I read everything. He let out a slow breath, the kind people take when they know the past is about to catch up. And the mill? I didn't answer that. Didn't need to. He rubbed his hands together. Cracked a knuckle. Stared at the pavement. I tried to burn that map, he said. 3 times. It wouldn't catch. What happened? I asked. My voice was calmer than I expected. Back then. Why did you take me? He turned toward me. There was something in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Not guilt. Not fear. Resignation. Because if I didn't, you'd be dead, he said. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and started talking. William, my father, had been a maintenance contractor for Aridon Industrial. Not a scientist. Just a guy with a clipboard and a hard hat, hired to keep the machines running and not ask questions. But he did ask questions. The mill wasn't just dumping chemicals. They were testing things. Biological agents. Splicing genes, infecting animals. Trying to stimulate accelerated adaptation. In plain English, they were creating monsters in the dark and hoping to profit from it. Something went wrong. One of the agents, Subject 12, escaped containment. A partial absorption failure, they called it. Whatever that means. People in town got sick. Cows were born with no eyes. Some of the test animals died, but some didn't. And William found a drum buried in the woods, leaking into the soil. He took pictures. Started talking to neighbors. Wrote letters to regulators. Too loud, too fast. So they made a deal, a check, a gag order, and silence. He refused. That's when the threat started. My mother wanted to run, but William said no. Said truth mattered more than safety. Said someone needed to know. Then the fire happened. They told me to leave you, Dale said quietly. They didn't even want the body found. No records. No death certificate. Just gone. They? I asked. He didn't answer that. I got there first, he said. Beat them by maybe 10 minutes. The house was already burning. Your mom and dad, they didn't make it. I swallowed hard. He looked at me for the first time in a long while. You were in the shed, he said. Wrapped in a blanket. Still breathing. I don't know how you got out. Maybe your mom carried you there before it caught. He paused. I didn't think. I just took you. You could have gone to the police. He laughed, bitter and hollow. Kid, they were the police. The company had the sheriff in their pocket, half the county too. I bring you in, we both disappear. So you changed everything. Your name, your birth certificate, your records. Found someone willing to sign off, no questions asked. Moved to Indiana. Told you your mom died of natural causes. He looked down again. I didn't do it to hurt you, he said. I did it because it was the only way to keep you alive. And what now? I asked. You think they're just gonna let this go? You think they don't know I've been back? Oh, they know. He stood up slowly, joints stiff from age and guilt. You've stirred up ghosts, Aaron. And some of them are still on the payroll. What were they trying to make? I asked. He looked at me with tired eyes. Not what, he said. Who? Dale left just after sundown. Didn't say where he was going. Just stood in the motel parking lot with the engine running, looking at me like he was memorizing my face. Then he said, be smart. Don't stay in one place too long, and drove off. I haven't heard from him since. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the photo from the drum. The twisted bones. The thing with the teeth. I saw the fire, even though I didn't remember it. Heard my mother's voice, though I'd never known it. And I saw my face, in that photo on the wall, the one with the family I didn't remember, smiling like nothing had ever gone wrong. The next morning, I went looking. I needed answers. Not guesses. Not rumors. Cold facts. I started with public archives, county records, library microfiche, old newspaper reels. Rowan County didn't have much, but what they had was telling. Aridon Industrial shut down in 1986. 2 years after Subject 12 was listed in my father's note. Officially, they cited financial mismanagement and unresolvable liability exposure. That's corporate speak for, we almost got caught. But the name kept showing up, mostly buried, mostly redacted, in state inspection reports, EPA filings, and one memo from the Department of Energy that wasn't supposed to be public. I found it scanned in a university database. Dated 1985. It mentioned Aridon's experimental bioagent division. Said it was operating under a temporary private sector exemption, tied to a DARPA partnership. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just corporate negligence. It was government-sanctioned. And it went further. One of the names listed as a civilian consultant was William A. Grady, my father. He wasn't just fixing pipes and checking gauges. He was involved. I went back to the box. Pulled out a folder I hadn't paid much attention to before. It was thinner than the others, marked only with the initials E, B, D. Inside were 3 sheets of paper. One was a hand-drawn chart, a family tree, or something like it. My father's name was at the top. My mother's below it. Then a line connecting them to one word in bold block letters. Subject 12. Below that, handwritten, viable. No rejection. There was no arrow back to me. But there didn't need to be. It was right there. In black and white. In my father's own hand. I wasn't just his son. I was the result. I sat there for a long time, trying to feel something. Anger, maybe. Betrayal. Grief. But what I felt was simpler than that. Emptiness. Like something had been pulled out of me, and all that was left was the echo. I'd always wondered why I healed faster than most. Why I never broke a bone, even in 2 motorcycle crashes. Why doctors always blinked twice at my blood tests, then said nothing and moved on. I thought I was lucky. Turns out, I was something else. Something made. That night, I drove back toward the mill. Not all the way. Just far enough to park on the ridge overlooking the valley. No headlights. No movement. No sign of the men in black. But I knew they were watching. Because I wasn't the only secret buried out there. And maybe I wasn't the only one who made it out. I left the ridge just after midnight and drove for hours without direction. Ended up at a diner off I-64, one of those all-night spots that smells like burnt coffee and bleach. Sat in the corner booth, staring into a cup that never got any emptier, even after 3 refills. That's when the message came. Not a call. Not a text. Just a vibration, then a blinking screen. You shouldn't have gone back. No number. No contact info. Just the words, floating there like a whisper inside my phone. My gut twisted. I looked around the diner. Nobody watching. Waitress was behind the counter, wiping the same spot for the 3rd time. One guy in a trucker hat dozing near the door. A woman scrolling her phone with headphones in. Nobody out of place. But still, somebody knew. I typed back, "Who is this?" No response. Not right away. Then, 3 minutes later. "You're not the only one." My blood went cold. I asked, "The others, what happened to them?" The reply came instantly this time. "Meet me. Tomorrow. Noon. 38, 3351, -83. 1764. I pulled up the coordinates. A gas station. Abandoned. Just off Route 36, west of Grayson. I stared at the screen for a while, then typed, "How do I know this isn't a trap?" No reply. Figures. I left cash on the table and drove back to the motel. Slept with my back to the wall and my keys in my hand. Didn't dream. The next morning, I got there early. The gas station was a concrete husk, windows busted, roof sagging, weeds growing up through cracks in the lot. One of those roadside places that never got torn down, just left to rot. I parked out back, behind the old propane tank, and waited. At 12:07, a car pulled in. Silver sedan. Tinted windows. Not government issue, too dirty. A woman got out. Late 30s. Short dark hair. Jeans, boots, gray hoodie. She moved like someone who checked every corner before walking through a door. I stepped out, hands where she could see. "You the one who texted me?" She nodded. Didn't smile. "You're Aaron Grady." "Yeah." She studied my face. "You don't look like him." "Who?" "Your father." That caught me off guard. "You knew him?" She didn't answer. Just reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. Tossed it to me across the hood of my truck. Inside were photos. Reports. Scans of files I hadn't seen before. One stuck out, a group photo. 6 people in lab coats, standing in front of what looked like a bunker. One of them was my father. Another was her. "You were part of it," I said. "I was 23, she replied. "Junior researcher. Thought I was doing something important. And now?" She looked past me, toward the tree line. Now I live off the grid and wait for someone to ask the right questions. She took out a cigarette, lit it, took a long drag. Your father tried to stop them, she said. He didn't want to be part of the human trials. He didn't even know they'd moved forward until it was too late. Human? She nodded. You were the only viable result. My stomach turned. They called it Project Lazarus, she said. Not because it brought anything back to life, but because they wanted to build something that couldn't die. I didn't know what to say. You're not a clone, she continued. You're not a lab rat. You're his son. But your blood, she trailed off. Your blood isn't just human. Not anymore. I looked down at my hands. They looked the same as always. Calloused. Scarred. Real. But now I wasn't so sure. She dropped the cigarette. Crushed it under her boot. They're still running the program, she said. Different name. Different location. Same goals. Why are you telling me this? Because they're going to come for you. I swallowed hard. And because, she added, you might be the only one who can stop them. The woman gave me a name, Clark Ridge. Not a town. Not even a community. Just a facility, buried deep in the hills of eastern Kentucky, under a false company name, Red Leaf Logistics. She said it was where they moved everything after the Rowan site got too hot. Eridan folded. The government buried it. But the work went on. They always make sure it goes on. She handed me a flash drive. Said it held access logs, blueprints, employee rosters. Stuff she'd collected over 20 years, piece by piece. I can't go back there, she told me. They'll know my face. But you, she paused. You're what they built. Maybe that means you can walk through the front door. I didn't answer. Didn't have to. She knew I was going. 2 nights later, I pulled off a side road 3 miles west of Clark Ridge. No signs, no buildings, just a narrow gravel path heading into the trees. Google Maps showed nothing but green. No businesses. No facility. Nothing. But I had the blueprints. And I had the name of the man in charge. Dr. Wallace Eames. He used to work under my father. Now he was the one running the show. I parked the truck off-road, covered it with a camo tarp, and hiked in on foot. The trail wasn't marked, but the satellite images had shown a break in the trees, an old fire road. I followed it for nearly an hour before I saw it. High chain-link fence. Razor wire. Motion sensors. And just beyond it, steel doors built into the hillside, like a bunker. I watched for a while. One guard patrolling the perimeter in a golf cart. Cameras sweeping on a slow loop. A small service entrance on the north side with a keypad lock. I waited until dark. Then I moved. I made it inside by midnight. The badge from the woman, taken from a technician who disappeared in 2019, still scanned green. I slipped through the lower levels, sticking to maintenance corridors, using the blueprints to move between sectors. Everything was sterile. Gray. Lit with that clinical white LED glow that makes everything feel colder than it is. I passed labs behind glass, sealed rooms with biometric locks, cryo units humming with power. And then I found the file room. No guards. Just shelves of binders and digital terminals, like they didn't expect anyone to get this far. I keyed in my father's name. 5 results. One was a video file. I watched it. The date stamp read October 4, 1986. The footage was grainy, analog tape, digitized poorly. My father stood at a podium in a small conference room, a whiteboard behind him scrawled with formulas and sketches. He looked younger than I'd ever seen him, and tired. Haunted. I'm recording this for whoever finds it, he said. Because I don't think we're going to survive this much longer. He took a breath. They've accelerated the timeline. Subject 12 is viable. Growth is stable. But the behavior isn't. It mimics. It adapts. But it doesn't understand pain or empathy. It sees people the way you or I see scaffolding, useful until it's not. He paused, looked away, then back at the camera. My son, Aaron, he's not subject 12. He was a fallback. Insurance. Something pure. I made sure he wasn't exposed. My pulse kicked up. He can't be part of this. If you're watching this, and you found him, let him live his life. Don't drag him into this. Don't let them make him what they made me. He leaned forward, eyes hard. Because if they do, if they use his blood to finish the work, they won't be building soldiers. They'll be building gods. The tape ended. I sat in the dark for a long time. My breath was loud in the silence. Then a voice behind me said, "You shouldn't be here." I turned. It was him. Dr. Eames. Older now, white hair, thin as bone, but eyes sharp. And he was holding a sidearm. Dr. Eames didn't hesitate. He raised the pistol and motioned me away from the terminal. "Step back," he said. Calm. Like this was just another late-night meeting. I did. Hands raised. Heart pounding. Mind spinning. "I figured you'd come eventually," he said. "Once you knew what you were." "I'm not your project," I said. He smiled. "No," he replied. "You're his. Williams." But he didn't understand what you were capable of. He saw the risks. I see the potential. I could hear footsteps now. Distant. Boots on tile. He hadn't come alone. "You used him," I said. "You lied to him." Eames shrugged. "William had a conscience. That was his flaw. Yours can be corrected. I'm not subject 12. He stepped closer. "But you carry its code. You think it's a coincidence you survived the fire? You think it's luck your blood resists disease, heals bone, doesn't age like the rest of us? I'm not your experiment." "No," he said. "You're our answer." He raised the gun higher, chest level now. "Come with me," he said. "You don't have to run anymore. We can finish what your father started." "And if I say no?" He smiled again. Cold. Final. "You won't." I moved before he could pull the trigger. Not with speed. With intent. I knocked his wrist aside, and the gun fired. The shot punched a hole through the terminal behind me. We struggled, old man's strength against something he didn't understand. He managed to bring the pistol back up, but I caught his arm, twisted. Something cracked. He screamed. The gun hit the floor. And I saw it, for a moment, in his eyes. Not fear. Awe. "You're not like him," he rasped, clutching his ruined wrist. "You're more." I looked down at my hands. He was right. I wasn't like him. Not anymore. But I still had a choice. I set fire to the facility. Every file. Every tank. Every vat of blood and string of code they'd ever tried to splice into someone's skin. I lit it all. Used their own fail-safes, the ones meant to contain a breach. And then I walked out. Through smoke and sirens. Through a night that burned behind me like the past finally letting go. They'll say it was a gas leak. Or a terrorist act. Or nothing at all. But I know what it was. It was the end. Of Project Lazarus. Of Subject 12. Of a secret that never should have lived long enough to make me. It's been 2 months. I live quiet now. Off the grid. New name. New town. I still wake up with the echoes, of fire, of that voice, of the boy in the photo who didn't know what was coming. But I'm still here. And I'm not running anymore. My father tried to save me from this. And maybe I couldn't save him. But I made damn sure no one else will ever be made like me again.